everybody, it is I, CrystalFlame360, or if you prefer just Crystal, and welcome to this small corner of the internet where I just do whatever I feel like doing. In today's video we are back with the Tricou family, and yes, I said we are back because this is a continuation from part 1 of this duology, if you will. In part 1 I went into their characters, relationships, their quirks, their appearance and all that jazz. Raynell was also briefly covered, so if you want my spin on them, my weird way of going into those things, then part 1 is where that's at. I should have it linked below. I will also say that my commentary style is more comedic in tone, I guess, just because I figured that every take on them would be serious, and I just wanted to try and make this fun, so be informative and fun. If I failed in that approach, I'm sorry. In this part, I'll be going into the Descendants, my view on them specifically, I guess, and theories surrounding the family that I either found online or thought of myself. I'll say that listening back on my audio, I can sound unintentionally, I don't know, I wouldn't say judgmental, but my tone takes random tones sometimes. It may also be something I've noticed, I don't know. I'll also leave a disclaimer here in saying that I'm not making fun of the theories I cover or anything, and that's where I've just noticed where it worked out, where I'm like, oh yeah, I sound judgmental now, I just realised. Yeah, like I was going back through the audio and editing it and stuff just to make sure everything synced up and like the visuals synced up with what I was saying, and I noticed that sometimes I'm saying that so for example, there is a section where I'm talking about cause of death or something, and I'm like, oh, it says the adults died in this way, which is evidently false because they're starvation ghosts, so they died of starvation. And I think I do, in a hint of self-awareness, kind of go like, but I've already started to disagree with it anyway, so what am I on about? You'll know which point it is when you see it, and that's what I kind of mean. I kind of say, so like, that's always not true because of the facts, but like, theories are just fun theory crafting. Like, I have weird headcanons for a lot of stuff that's evidently false. Like I'm not sure if this is of the same caliber, but like I view Johnny, Rip and Ophelia as being the same age, when as far as technically the canon's concerned, Johnny and Ophelia are way older than Rip, you know what I mean? So it's like, so when I say stuff like that, just kind of like things where I'm kind of there like, well, this is evidently false because the ghosts are starvation, obviously, like take that with a pinch of salt, because that was just me being stupid while scripting. Like I didn't really realise how daft it sounded until I was like listening back, and I'm like, what the heck am I saying here? That doesn't make sense. So yeah, just keep that sort of stuff in mind, I guess. I don't know. It's meant to be a fun video. This was also supposed to go up on Halloween, but I didn't have like all of my storytelling screenshots and footage done, if you will, so that was why it was delayed until now. I would have loved for it to have been out on Halloween, but you know, stuff happens. So yes, without further ado here, I hope you enjoyed this 3 or 4 month work in progress, and I don't even know what to call it anymore, but I hope you enjoyed this continuation and thus conclusion of a weird passion project I've had. So yeah, I kind of went out of my comfort zone in certain parts, and it kind of shows with how unpolished some sections are, but I've been talking for almost 4 minutes now, so I'll just let you watch the actual video now. This is a perfect opportunity to discuss a certain group of teenage downtownies. These are known by many names, including the Tricou teens, not to be confused with the other Tricou teens. I've also seen them get called the downtownie teens or the bastards. They are commonly referred to as the Tricou Descendants, or just the Descendants for short though. Basically, they are a family of 6 teenagers who all consider Jonathan to be their father. This is one-sided, however, as Jonathan doesn't see them in the same way. It's that funky that if you go into any of the family trees and click on Jonathan, you won't be able to get back to where you started. As far as Jonathan's concerned, he has 2 grown daughters and that's it. Some think that this could be due to the fact that the teens are supposed to be descendants in the literal sense, and the only way Maxes could reflect this was to make these guys view Jonathan as their father, or they weren't supposed to be Jonathan's kids and it was yet another Max's hiccup. The most common and likely assumption though is that they exist as a means to resurrect the Tricou family if the player wants to, because as these teens know Jonathan, they can resurrect him to resurrect the rest of his family. I find that it adds to this air of mystery that many players, myself included, like about the Tricous. Just imagine playing Nightlife when it first came out and excitedly adding a downtown to your neighbourhood to explore the features. Then, one of your teenage Sims befriends one of these descendants and winds up marrying them and having children who grow up to have children. Eventually, you want to see this progress on the family tree, so you look and see that the Sim your teen befriended all that time ago actually has siblings that you didn't know about, and even a dead father. Interest piqued, you click on his family tree to see nothing but an entirely dead family. I mean, it's quite cool. But after all this time nattering about the Descendants, who are these Sims really? Well, they look the same in every Max's downtown generated, but will have randomised names. Fortunately, we have names in the downtown template to go off of. I will also add that they all have the pleasure aspiration that came with Nightlife, and they share the surname of Teens. Very creative, I know. Firstly, we have Kestrel Teens, who is the only one to be on the nice side of the personality scale. I have nothing much to say about her unless we are going off of my personal headcanon for her. If you're curious, I view her as the older sibling who keeps the others together. In my first ever custom HUD, Crystal Lake, not to be confused with Camp Crystal Lake from Friday the 13th. I legit haven't seen that film and didn't know that my HUD name wasn't original until a family friend pointed it out. Anyway, as I was saying, in that HUD she generated with the name Amaya Dallas, and that's the name she's always had for me since. Whenever she generates, I'll always change her name to Amaya Dallas. I do the same for the other teens too. Orion Teens is the goth one, and I remember him being more on the grouchy and playful side. He's been more like the older brother in my experience based on the family tree placement from what I could make out. My second time recording this because this last iteration of this got corrupted. So, if you can't tell by the even more abysmal mic quality, this is Editor Crystal, who is here to briefly correct something I said here. So, I said that Kestrel was the eldest of all the teens and of all the girls, and Orion is the second eldest and the eldest of all the boys, based on the family tree placement. I was wrong. I was right in saying that Orion was the eldest of the boys, but wrong in saying that he was the eldest of the second. Basically the second eldest. I'm sorry, it's late. So I went into SimPE and recorded them out. Well, recorded them out. For God's sake! I sorted them out by reference, instant fucking hell. Right, I'll do this again. So I went into SimPE and sorted them out by instance number just to make sure, and found out that Orion is actually the eldest overall. So factually, Orion is both the eldest of the boys and the second, not second, God, sorry, writing on, again. So factually, Orion is both the eldest of the boys and the eldest overall, followed by Tiave. Yes, I checked and found out that the name was, well, pronounced Tiave, but I didn't check until after I recorded, so I pronounce it Tiave the whole time for the remainder of this video. I'm so sorry, anyone called Tiave in the world. Anyway, so as I was saying, the actual age order goes as follows: Orion, Tiave, Lauren, Patrick, Swan, and lastly Kestrel. Sorry about that and the mic quality. I'll get on with the video now, but before that I'll quickly say that there are instances I will say, like, yeah, Tiav is the youngest, but, like, now you know, he isn't. It's just me being an absolute nugget, like a giant chicken nugget for a brain. Right, Yeah, like, it's mush at the moment, so I'm just going to go over and make myself look like a bigger moron. So, thank you for giving this video a shot here, and thank you for continuing if this massive hiccup hasn't made you lose faith in me, if you haven't already. But I don't know, I see him as giving Kestrel a small hand when he can, with him being the eldest of the boys, in my head. It's worth noting here that he is one of the twins, the twins? One of the two, sorry, to have a broken face template. There are no twins. Sorry to get your hopes up here. Now, before anyone panics, like my sister did when I told her this after one of his Sims romanced him, it's not something game or HUD breaking. Basically, two of the face templates aren't linked to the other life stages correctly, only adult and young adult, so for every other life stage, they are linked to the default second template, which results in Sims looking drastically different once they age to an adult. So if anything, it's just jarring. To give an example, imagine a teenage Don Lothario aging up to an adult, but instead of the face you've become familiar with since he was a toddler, he looks like Mickey Dosser. Yeah, that's literally what happens. The templates affected are 21 and 25. A fix can be installed to combat the issue. Whoa, that sounded so dramatic. But either way, the Argon fix that I'll link below can help. With newly created Sims, I'm afraid, so any pre-mades created with these templates are going to go through some major facial changes in their lifetime. Sorry, Hal. Tangents over, let's wrap Orion's section up. He is based on the 25th template, so his face will suddenly become square, his ears will grow, his mouth will widen. And why does it sound like I'm describing a werewolf transformation? So, for those curious, in my personal games I always call him Connor Cameron, for the same reasons listed for Kestrel. Swan is a pretty elegant name for a rather unpleasant young woman. This girl's a piece of work. Swan Teens is more on the grouchy and serious end, so she is more likely to pick up fights unprovoked, but that's just grouchy Sims for you. In my personal game she goes by the name Demi Futa, and I view her as wanting to be independent, but with her being the youngest of the girls, her brothers and older sister can be pretty overprotective. That's just what I've gleaned from my personal games. Again, Editor Crystal popping in again with her usual mic this time, just saying that no, Swan isn't the youngest, it's still Kestrel. I think I warned that I still make stupid mistakes like this, so be patient with that. Patrick is the middle child and his personality is quite level to a degree. He has 5 nice points, I remember that much. I view him as being the kind of guy to go with the flow, go wherever life takes him. A passive fella. In my personal games he goes by the name Richard Ryan, and in Crystal Lake I remember him butting heads with Orion a lot for some reason. They got into a lot of fights, but they made up eventually, so that's good. Lauren is quite grouchy and serious. By the look of how he dresses, he strikes me as a smart guy, but I think his interest in school is non-existent, if I'm remembering right. He cleans up nicely, a turtleneck suits him. In my personal games he goes by the name Marcel Raymond, and to me he looks like a Marcel, but that might be because I've called him this for nearly 3 years. Lastly, we have my favourite of the teens downtownies, Tiav Teens, or how I always know him, Robert Beatty, but I will keep calling him Tiav to avoid confusion. Am I even pronouncing that right?
TRV.
Bruh.
Anyway, he's grouchy and serious. I believe he's outgoing to an extent, but out of the 6 of them, he had an important role in Crystal Lake's story. That's probably why I like him. Now, he's flawed, as he's the other teen to have a broken face template, as he's built on the 21st template. I would describe what happened to him in my personal game, but it won't be brief. I view him as a closed-off guy, but whenever he does make a friend or something, he will keep them close and protect them. That's what happened with Fracora. Yeah. It was that kind of confusing story. He married Meadowthea and had 5 kids while making his way to the top of the criminal career. I would mention Annalise, but she's a born-in-game sim, so she married Rakora after having a traumatic teenage life. We'll leave it there. Now, we know where these guys are. They're in downtown. And we know who these guys are. We'll end the section. But basically, was this drawn out a bit? Yes. But I just didn't want to go, look, this is blank, that is blank, and move on. I wanted to make it personal and stuff, so things I said about them will be different from your interpretation, which is fine. So yeah, on to the part that I'm the most excited for. Yeah. The meat after the veggies. The Tricous, with them being as mysterious as they are host to an abundance of theories and speculation. This section will aim to cover ones I found and thought of myself too, as well as random thoughts I've had mixed in. So let's get into this. This first one is the most common, so I will just get it out of the way. With vampires being introduced in nightlife, combined with the House of Fallen Trees' eerie lighting, a pair of coffins in the basement, and the Tricou's gothic appearance, it wouldn't be too far-fetched to assume that they were a vampire clan of some description. It's definitely a believable theory that makes sense, but the only thing that makes me a little bit iffy on it is the fact that they're not vampires. They're just normal Sims. I would have thought that if Maxis had intended for them to be vampires, then they would have made them vampires. However, there could also exist possible reasons as to why they didn't do that, such as leaving them as normal Sims so that they can be resurrected at any time, or perhaps they were part of a vampire clan but got cured so they could live their lives. But then again, the memories would reflect that narrative, and I say that while Raynell's memories and death type don't line up. It's still a really cool theory that I incorporate into my own backstory for them usually. This theory is a simple one. The family could have simply been created to add mystery and intrigue to downtown. With there being no living families and nightlife being the only EP not to come with living Sims, it makes sense to me that Maxis wanted to make a pack that introduced vampires, mysterious things, and other stuff. What better way than to make the pre-made family introduced goth and dead? Or they could have been going with another sort of supernatural idea. A haunted house, perhaps? Either way, if their purpose was to make downtown mysterious, they sure did their job. Another theory that I thought of, and I think I saw someone else have the same thing in mind too, if I can find it I'll show it, but I'm pretty sure I'm not the only one who may have thought this. So the Tricous could have been a beta family that was used to experiment with the nightlife features before being promptly killed off after they served their purpose. However, the more I think about it, they have basic cast memories, meaning they didn't live in a virtual life before passing. They could have just been made, had their relationships adjusted as they have no flags to speak of, and then off with the tombstone of life and death. Wait, I mean Rodney's death creator, what was I talking about? And that was it, like I said. So after saying that, they're probably just made for mystery, but we can still speculate more. So for speculation and fun theory crafting, I was thinking, don't the Grey Woman of SimCity and Vardawn sort of have parallels? In the House of Fallen Trees, there is a stone statue in the back called the Grey Woman of SimCity, a decorative object introduced with nightlife. This same statue is also in the Gothia Greenlawn Cemetery. In the by-catalogue description, she has a story that goes as follows. There is an old legend about the Grey Woman of SimCity. It is said that one day while the Grey Woman was baking a turkey, she got a phone call from a long-lost cousin and accidentally forgot the turkey was in the oven. This caused her house to catch on fire, and tragically, the turkey was burned. Also, the woman died, and it is said that she watches over all babies and toddlers from beyond the grave, and that is why they cannot be harmed by fire. Of course, the parallels I'm pointing at is the death by fire and the call from a long-lost cousin. However, as interesting as this idea sounds, Tricous died before Vardawn, unless his ghost just decided to call her from beyond the grave for some reason. I don't know, this would have been cool. Because if we consider the Tricous in Moonlight Falls, and the fact that ghosts are a playable life state in The Sims 3, well, maybe he did call her. But I consider him to have died by satellite, his original cause of death. Hiccup or not, it just makes the family's death look more unfortunate and Final Destination-esque. Not that it really matters. Another plausible theory is Kiernan having an affair. It makes sense considering the guy is a romance sim, and it explains why Jennifer and Janael don't like the guy. He could have either tried to hit on either of them behind Alyssa's back and they rejected his advances, or they could have both walked in on him with someone else. However, although it explains their hatred for Kiernan, it doesn't explain the grudge most of the family have against Vardawn. This brings me into another theory that I just thought of. Returning to the possibility of them being a vampire clan for a second, imagine that the Tricous are from a long line of pure-blood vampires or something. Jennifer, who is a pure-blood, married another pure-blood called Jonathan. They had two pure-blooded girls called Janael and Alyssa. Janael married Vernon, who is a pure-blood, and had Tricous, who is of course a pureblood. Don't take a shot every time I say pureblood or you'll get very ill. Now, Nelisset fell in love with a human called Kiernan, who the family didn't approve of, with the exception of Jonathan, who is open-minded, Vernon, who didn't care, and Prochorith, who would have either not been born yet or a baby. Nelisset and Kiernan eventually have a daughter called Vardwan, who would be a vampire. I think that's how it's pronounced. So Jennifer and Janael could hate Kiernan for being a human and Vardwan for not being a pureblood vampire. It makes sense if you follow the they were vampires theory. Coming up with headcanons is fun. I remembered reading a theory somewhere that pointed towards Jennifer being responsible for the deaths within her family. The reason why depends on the theory, as there could be a variety of reasons, but the one I found on Yandere Plum Sims Tumblr, where they just translated the Spanish article, goes like this. Apparently, Jennifer and Kiernan were vampires. The reason being that they have the pleasure aspiration, and all vampires have the pleasure aspiration, which is true, but then you consider that the Descendants exist, and they're not vampires. That, and Kiernan is a romance sim, while Vernon is the pleasure sim. Anyway, Anyway, they've supposedly been dead for 50 years, which makes sense. I personally consider them to have been dead longer. Vardwan was apparently the penultimate in the family to die, because Jennifer hated her so much that she wanted the girl to watch all of her loved ones die first, before giving her a slow and painful death. Keep in mind, there are no clues in the game that point to this, it's just a theory being written as fact on the Spanish wiki. As far as I'm aware anyway. Now, time to get to the actual meat here. Jennifer was interested in Vernon, which makes sense as they'll have some chemistry based on their shared aspiration. Right, so Jennifer liked Vernon, so she turned Janael, Nelisset and Jonathan into creatures of the night so that she could be with Vernon while keeping her inheritance, which I don't know how that works, but whatever. Now this is where it gets weird. So it says that the reason why Vardwan hated Jennifer was because she was having an affair with her father, but the thing is, Vernon isn't her dad. Kiernan is her dad. This affair with her uncle, not her dad, was said to be one of the reasons why Vardwan hated all of her relatives except for Prochorith, because yes, it was Jonathan's fault that Jennifer had no self-control. Jennifer then eventually showed an interest in Kiernan, which made Vardwan hate her even more. Now, I will say this. If it's not obvious already, I think the Spanish wiki got the two husbands mixed up, because it states that Jennifer's interest in Kiernan occurred after Prochorith's death, but the thing is, Kiernan died before Prochorith, meaning that they're talking about Vernon because he died just before Vardwan. Anyway, it just states that Jennifer planned all of the deaths, which is why the grown-ups are buried at Gothia Greenlands and the teens at the House of Fallen Trees. That's it. Supposedly, the grown-ups died of overexposure to sunlight, which is false as they have the starvation ghost colours, but I've expressed doubt about that anyway, so why am I fucking mentioning this? It doesn't matter. Prochorith apparently died via electrocution, which is definitely not true, as his ghost is orange pointing towards satellite. Vardwan is said to have died of fire, which is correct. A long yet bizarre one, but I mean, the concept of Jennifer having an interest in one of the husbands and killing her family and whatnot is really interesting. However, it was told in such a messy way and had some facts mixed up, like whose dad was whose. So this is more of a general thought than a theory, but I couldn't think of where to fit this. Prochorith's Sims 3 cameo brings some questions to the table, as well as some new information to bounce theories from, I guess. Firstly, how did Prochorith wind up in Moonlight Falls? Like, he's the only Tricou there, and there's no Tricou manor either, so why was he there? His cause of death is fire here, but I just chalk it down to there being no satellite death in this game, and the ghost of fire type in The Sims 3 is orange like the satellite ghost. So to organise this a bit, I'll just list what this cameo means in terms of giving you information and confusing people. Since The Sims 3 takes place 25 years before the first Sims game, which takes place 25 years before The Sims 2, we can glean that the Tricous have been dead for over 50 years at least, which is what the last theory said, which I do agree with, but I do personally view them as being dead for longer. We also learn that they have some ties to Moonlight Falls, with Prochorith being buried at the cemetery. However, this brings some questions. How did Prochorith get to Moonlight Falls? Hell, how did he even get to his family home by the time The Sims 2 takes place? Was his corpse dragged there? Where is the family home? And where are the other Tricous? The only theory I can think of is that Moonlight Falls is another side of downtown from The Sims 2, but that hasn't been confirmed or anything. And even then, how did he get from a cemetery that wasn't Gothia Greenlawns to this one, then to his family home? The simple answer could be that it was renamed and Moonlight Falls eventually became downtown, but I don't know. For all I know, this cameo could just be a small nod to the Tricous from The Sims 2, and now I'm just thinking way too much into this. Hasn't been the first time, and it certainly won't be the last. A weird thing to bring up though, in terms of this version of Rakorath, is that his personality is different to a degree. In The Sims 2, he has 7 neat points, 3 outgoing points, 3 active points, 6 playful points, and 6 nice points. So, as I've mentioned before, he's neat, shy, lazy, playful, and nice. This means that if left to his own devices, he will admire Sims, try to play with other Sims, tell them jokes, clean objects, and all that jazz. However, in The Sims 3, he's got the friendly trait, which makes sense with him being friendly in the second game, the lucky trait, which, is this supposed to be a joke? Kind of like, he's so lucky he got crushed by a satellite / burned to death? I don't know. The charismatic trait, which again, although he was shy in The Sims 2, I do imagine him to have had some sort of charisma if everyone liked him. And with how The Sims 3's charisma skill works, this could be a nod to his popularity aspiration, which is quite cool if that's the case. Lastly, he has the no sense of humour trait. Yeah, a Sim who was playful and telling a lot of jokes autonomously in their debut was given the no sense of humour trait. What? There could be a good reason for it, like, since The Sims 3 is a prequel, he could be depressed at this point and finds joy in nothing, especially jokes. Then, with him being playful in the second game, this could mean that he has reached acceptance and has gone back to his old self, ready for resurrection or something. Most likely idea though is forgetfulness to a degree. That, or they had an idea for his character but misclicked somewhere, I don't know. I find comparing versions interesting. Personally though, I would have changed the lucky for neat and no sense of humour to good sense of humour, but that last trait could change from a result of character growth or something. Anyway, I've been talking about this point for too long, so I'll move on. Jonathan, despite being a family sim, oddly has the lifetime wish to be a criminal mastermind. And if I'm remembering correctly, all of his illegitimate children have the same lifetime wish too. So this begs the question, was Jonathan, and by extension the rest of his family, involved in a crime syndicate or something? Were they assassins, thieves, murderers, counterfeiters? The only thing to baffle me about this is that Jonathan has 7 nice points, but I couldn't picture him being a criminal. After looking at the resting place for like thousands of times for this video, I couldn't help but notice how decorated they are. Jonathan and Jennifer have flowers planted in front of their graves, as well as having statues nearby, while Janelle and Alyssa have flower vases in front of theirs. This to me points out the obvious that they were a noble family of some description, which is also supported by their home. They may have also been loved and well respected, judging by the fact that their resting place has been decorated with flowers. Now, you'll notice that I haven't mentioned Vernon and Kiernan, and that's because their graves are bare, the cause probably being that they married into the family and didn't leave a substantial enough impact on the people to warrant a decorated grave. Hence why Jonathan has one despite marrying into the family and the younger men don't. But that's just my theory. So this is another instance of me thinking out loud and this not being an actual theory. So I was thinking that the Tricous are a matriarchal family, which is quite refreshing considering the only matriarchal families from what I can remember are the Caps and the Summer Dreams. Anyway, back to the Tricous. With them being a matriarchal family, the line runs through the women, but most of the family and even the matriarch herself favour the grandson over the granddaughter. I'm still wondering why. If I were to take a guess, maybe Vardamon wasn't seen as being fit to be the heiress because she was like a wild card or something. Or maybe just because she's Kiernan's daughter and they feel like Kiernan only married an illicit to get into money. That or he was a sleaze. Okay, before I talk your ear off even more, so than I have done already, I'll cut the video up here. There can be more theories that what I have highlighted here, but if I were to sit here and blabber on about them any longer, this video could be over an hour long. I don't fucking know. So this video is one I've been working on for a little over a month now. I'm going to stop myself here quickly because at the time, so I think I said in the previous part, so part 1, that this was originally going to be one entire video and I wound up splitting it into 2 parts instead. So this was this section that you're hearing, not right now, because this is like additional bits while I'm editing here. So like everything was just recorded in one, like not one take, but in one day. So when it was originally going to be one entire video, so before the split. So it's why I'm saying stuff like, I've been working on this for over a month now, when that's just not true anymore. The original recordings and stuff was, it was in August, I think. I recorded it in, I think it was August. I recorded the video originally. It was in August. I began scripting it I began writing the script in July, recorded it in August, and then I think I got the first part done in September. So technically it's been more like 3 or 4 months, adding that last bit on there because like it's been more than a month. I will be popping in to correct myself on some bits or to make some additions. But yeah, I'm not even going to remove the ums from this section because it's just editor me. I can have as many ums and, well, I'm not going to like have random awkward pauses because that's just, but yeah. And it's definitely one of my experimental pieces. I wanted to make a video on this family because I find them really interesting and wanted an excuse to talk about them ad nauseum. So this is the result of that. I wanted this video to be a little bit different than the norm too, hence the slight comical spin I tried to put on it, because I just imagine that any videos made on this family would have spooky music and stuff, which this video has too, but I had strange dialogue, so I just wanted my goofy self to run amok here to hopefully give information and theories while making you laugh. If you didn't like the spin and would have preferred a more serious video on this family that's just short and to the point, describes the mystery and the Sims involved, and that's it, there are a few good ones that I found that I'll link below. SimFacts has a video on them that goes into the basic mystery and the Sims involved, from if I'm remembering correctly. Anyway, because I last watched this video years ago, there's also Calipers and Tongues who made a video on them which gives a brief overview of the mystery, but the sole focus of the video is the glitch surrounding the illicit, which I mentioned in this video. So like everything was just recorded in one, like not one take, but in one day. So when it was originally going to be one entire video, so before the split. These are the only videos I've watched on this family as of uploading this, so again, I did say I'll be popping in again, but since again I wrote the script for this section and recorded this section, there has been another video on the family by, if I had to guess the channel name, like not more of a guess, but more like pulling from my memory here, I think the channel was called Chibi2, I think, and they made a video on the Tricou family, I think about maybe like a month after mine or something, after part 1 came out, I think. I might be wrong here, but it was after my part 1 video anyway, and like I said, like the part 2 sections were recorded the same time as the part 1 sections, and this closing note section again was recorded and stuff, but before part 1 was released, so again, like I don't have the gift of foresight, but yeah, Chibi2, I think the channel is called, I should have it up on the screen so you can see it. It should also be linked below, like the other 2 videos I mentioned, and they actually go into some interesting things, you know, where the name Tricou possibly originates from, and you know, brings up some really interesting points, like where certain name origins are and stuff, which I think is quite interesting. Their video is also just down and to the point also, so no random comedic bits like I do, because I know not everyone's a massive fan of that kind of presentation. I don't know. Again, I'm having a bit of a wobble day today, but yeah, that video should also be linked below. It's also quite good. And yeah, so if any new videos get released after this section, no comment going, oh yeah, so blah blah made a video. Like, this is in the past now. As of I'm recording this section, it's the 11th of November, so yeah, if I do what I'm trying to do properly, you should be watching this on the 12th, but sometimes I never time my stuff correctly. Now, this section has been going on for 3 minutes, I'm just gonna shut up. They're good. Highly recommend them. I predict this video will take a while to export, but it'll be worth it in the end, hopefully. Speaking of hopes, I hope you enjoyed watching this video as much as I did making it, and if you did enjoy it, you can leave it a like. If you have anything you would like to say about the video that isn't toxic, then you can leave a comment voicing your thoughts. Hopefully I sounded less bored here. That was a main goal I had here too. I'm trying to sound a little bit less bored. I think I may have failed, because I never know, but yeah. And lastly, if you want to see more of what I decide to do in the future, then you can subscribe. I identify as a general gaming channel, but at the moment my focus is on The Sims 2, as it's one of my favourite games that I like, and I'm really into it, but I will also do content on other games alongside it eventually. I don't know when though. The content I do on The Sims 2 is varied, but I mainly do general thought type videos where I just talk, like this one you're watching now, and the occasional tutorial. I have an ongoing Let's Play series called A Strangely Pleasant View, a Strangetown and Pleasant View crossover neighbourhood that I try to get uploaded every Sunday. Anyway, before this video gets longer, I would like to say thank you for watching this video, especially if you made it to the end, as I do feel that it's lengthy. I would also like to say thank you if you decide to stick around for future videos, and hello to anyone new. With all that said, thank you again, and I hope to see you next time. Bye bye!